Good evening. The King's Indian attack is quite rare nowadays, but it's really common in the club level because it's easy to learn. It doesn't have a lot of theory in it. So Fischer used to use it, and that's maybe the one exception in the top level. So there's some recurring tactical themes and sacrifices with a sharp attack on the king side for white, and then black gets space advantage on the queen side, and if that attack breaks through, then white is in trouble. The King's Indian attack can be used against many semi-open defenses by black, for example the French defense, or Caro-Kann, or well, even Sicilian defense, even though that is an open defense, but it doesn't challenge the e4 pawn immediately uh, by means of e5. So and you can acquire the position uh, King's Indian attack by many ways, such as maybe e4 first, or knight f3 first, or even d3 first. So that's why it's quite flexible, and it's the mirrored version of the King's Indian defense. So, but white has an extra tempo, of course, compared to that, because white starts. So instead of looking at theory and what would be objectively best, I would just like to look at one game between Fischer and Mjagmar Suren in the 60s. Here, Fischer starts with e4, and black plays e6, the French, and here white decides to go for the King's Indian attack. Black strikes at the center immediately, but it doesn't matter. Knight d2, knight f6, g3, c5, bishop g2, knight c6, knight f3, bishop e7, castles, castles. And this is the typical setup in the King's Indian attack. g3, bishop g2, castle, knight f3, and then d3, e4, and knight d2. And often white pushes e5 with the pawn, like here he does immediately. Rook e1, knight f1, h4, bishop f4. Notice this timely counter move on the queen side. White doesn't just play on the king side. But now white continues his play on the queen side. A very brave move, just interfering with black's game on the king side. And here black exchanges a pair of minor pieces. but it's not enough. Queen h5, just boldly placing the queen close to the opponent's king. It's many times a good idea. And now this move, bishop f6, which looks ridiculous, but if black captures, then white indeed can have a better game by means of e takes f, then having the strong pawn at f6 with the possible mate threats on g7, and bringing his knight also in the game, possibly the rook. So that's why black prefers to play queen e8, even though perhaps just taking on f6 was best anyway. Knight e4, queen g5, and also queen h6 was good there, simply. Knight takes e4, c4. Now black's attack is crashing through. So it looks better for black. Here h5, just more importantly vacating the square for the rook than trying to break this pawn structure here. Queen h6 and queen f8 is forced, and the white queen is not taking part in the checkmate. It's just she's giving herself up, and then black resigned because black has to take the queen, and then check comes from g6 with the pawn. And notice how important was the move bishop g2, repositioning the bishop, because then king takes g6 is forced, and bishop e4 is checkmate. So there was also this idea of rook h8 checkmate. If king goes back to g8 after h takes g6 check, then it's a checkmate from h8. So using all of these four pieces and also this pawn to open this h file so that this rook can take away these squares. And I guess the pawn can also be counted as an attacking piece. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4 attacking pieces and 1 pawn to checkmate the black king. So, and white had just enough time to do it, or perhaps he had even more time than that. Let me just show the checkmate like this. This is perhaps the most famous game of the King's Indian attack. And if king goes here, then rook h8 checkmate. Notice how it all started here, or perhaps even earlier. Already here, black saw the potential of his pieces. It looks like white doesn't have anything here, but he's gonna bring his rook in Um, so, with the help of this knight, vacating the e4 square, so he can bring the rook to most likely h4, and then this bishop is either going to break open the black king side, or then take control of these squares, possibly function with the rook, and then this pawn is also being used to break open a file or something, h file if possible. And this queen doesn't really have to be part of the checkmate, it's just also sacrificed just to open the game, or to finally like to destroy this h pawn and to gain a valuable tempo. And this bishop can't function on this diagonal, so it comes here, and that's the way to get to this b1 h7 diagonal, to take away these important squares. g6, well, h7 doesn't need help because the rook is gonna take it down. So that was the 10 move sequence that Fischer saw from here. So yeah, that was some middle game practice there as well. But thanks for watching. Hopefully it was helpful. Bye.